Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Johnstone, and welcome to the Grit with Wisdom podcast. This is the podcast that aims to delve deep into the inner psyche and the mindsets of mountain bikers from all aspects of our sport in order to help you understand some of the tools, the tactics, and what it takes to push the boundaries of our sport from a mental and emotional perspective. Today's guest is Matt Bolton. Matt is an insanely talented and creative rider and trail builder from Squamish here in BC, Canada. He's known locally for pushing the boundaries of physics as he pioneers and rides new near vertical slab lines in areas that have been historically only for rock climbing. Matt is not one to let fear hold him back from riding what most people would consider off limits to a bike. With a host of rad films and projects to his name, he not only rides inspiring lines, but he also builds them too. We dig into the mindset behind his various riding, building, and filming projects. So if you want to learn how high-level riders like Matt prepare themselves mentally and how you can prepare yourself mentally for riding anything challenging for you, this is definitely one to listen to right to the end. With no further ado, let's give a warm welcome to today's guest, Matt Bolton. Matt, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Stoked to be on.
Yeah, man, I've got a giant list of questions for you, but I'd love to start with just a big open-ended one that you can kind of take whichever way you like. I'd like to ask you why. Why do you ride mountain bikes?
It's a pretty tough question, but I feel like everyone has their own answer. For me, mountain biking has always kind of offered me like freedom to express myself and clear my head and kind of enjoy what I do, what I enjoy what I like to do. So, if I'm having a bad day or got a lot going on, just hop on the bike and you go clear your head and forget about what's going on, and you kind of get into your own world, your own flow state, and it's just it's nice, it's kind of peaceful for me. Feel like home on the bike, so it just feels very natural. Love it.
Absolutely, man. That's a great answer, that freedom. And, it's so great hearing from people like you that are able to get into that flow state relatively easily on a mountain bike. Some of my questions kind of following on from this are going to be, digging into like how do you get into that flow state while you're mountain biking? But before we do that, I'm curious, like when did you get into freeride mountain biking specifically?
Well, when I was growing up in Ontario, I rode a lot of skate parks and dirt jumps. That's pretty much all there was to ride out there. So, I never really could call myself a free rider. It's definitely a dirt jumper as a kid, but I moved out west, got my first trail bike, and just got really into trail riding and just having a blast doing that, like riding some different stuff. Um, Rode it's like some downhill as well, obviously, like hit up the Whistler Bike Park, and um, I think with the jumping background, I've always just kind of loved catching air and doing dangerous stuff. So when I kind of transitioned more into mountain biking and dirt jumping, it was kind of like a natural evolution to kind of get into free ride. So I wouldn't even call myself a free rider, just be like a mountain biker that likes to do big stuff. So
Yeah, right on. It was funny when I was coming up with these questions. I was kind of like, is he a free rider or what is he? Because you kind of blend a lot of different styles of mountain biking together. And I think that's, what's so cool about your riding. How long ago did you move out west then? Was it when you were a kid or?
no, I moved up for school. It's coming up on 8 years now, which is pretty crazy. Time flies pretty fast.
Yeah,
This feels like
absolutely.
yesterday, but 8 years I've been out west. I've been in Squamish for just under 7.
Awesome, dude. It's a pretty hard place to leave once you move there. Hey? Just absolute paradise for mountain biking.
Yeah, it's awesome, especially when you get mild winters and you're biking in a t-shirt in February and March. It's hard to beat
Yeah,
that.
exactly right. It's pretty unreal right now. And I'm curious, you said kind of out in Ontario, you grew up building a lot of jumps and stuff. Did the trail building play a big part in kind of the style of riding that you're into now?
Yeah, I'd say 100%. Like I was always digging jumps as a kid. Like there was, as I said, there's nothing to ride, so it was like pretty much just me just out stacking dirt jumps in the forest, and I'd move on another spot, build jumps and build jumps and build jumps. And I guess when I'm building trails now, I'm just like, well, might as well keep building jumps. Just get bigger and a little more elaborate.
No, that's awesome, man. Would you say you spend more time kind of building than riding these days, or what?
I try to keep it balanced. It's pretty
Yeah,
tough, like working full time and then trying to keep motivation to go riding and digging. It's like definitely pretty easy to get burnt out. But yeah, I try to dig when it's like the weather's pretty rainy. Not a big fan of riding in the soaking wet, so usually I'll just put on the rain gear and go dig. It's a little bit more enjoyable than riding in the wet, anyways.
yeah, absolutely. A little less mud on your face here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So I'm curious, you're building a lot of your own trails, you're riding them as well. Does your level of does it differ for riding, say, a trail that you've built yourself versus jumping on someone else's trail and hitting it for the first time?
It really depends on the trail. Like I know for my stuff, a lot of the time when I first try it out, it's pretty spooky. Like you never know if it's gonna work 100%. And you have a rough idea. You're like, well, should go, and then just like getting the speed dialed is it's pretty scary the first time. So I wouldn't really say I'm more comfortable on my own trails after you've ridden them a bunch, obviously. But we're pretty lucky here. We've got so many talented trail builders around. Um, you can hop on a trail and it's pretty much going to be dialed. Good example of this is the bike ranch. Like those guys are so dialed out there at building jumps. All the jumps are going to work perfectly. Like you don't have to brake, you don't have to pedal. So um, yeah, I feel just as comfortable riding somebody else's trail that's a good builder than my trail.
Yeah, awesome. It is pretty good getting on a trail at like a bike park where you know the trail builders are sound, hey? Kind of takes that element of unknown away. You're just like, I just need to ride this trail and not break, and I'm probably going to clear all the jumps.
Yeah, it's great. And then you can kind of push yourself some more, add some more style to it. And yeah, not overthink it.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm curious, do you have any kind of visualization process or anything you do when you are like staring down a jump that you've built and you're like, I'm not quite sure about this thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So this last, like, let's, for example, this last feature I built was this massive log ride step down. Um, I've been looking at it for months and I'm like, where should I put the landing? How big should I build the lip? Like, what's the speed gonna be going into it? So definitely a lot of time spent thinking about it and planning on what to do. And then you do a bunch of roll-ins and you're like, you can kind of visualize it. And once you have that dialed, then usually goes pretty well. I've been quite lucky for that one. Like I think the first time I overshot maybe by like 4 feet, but
Okay. Well, better than going the other way and undershooting by 4 feet, that's for sure.
yeah, if I've done that on somebody else's drop before, I cased it pretty bad and vaporized my wheel. So
Oh, dude. So that kind of sparks another question in my mind. When you do have experiences like that, where maybe, writing the feature didn't go to plan, you have a bit of a bad time. Do you kind of have any process you follow then so that bad time maybe doesn't stick with you and come back to haunt you next time you're trying to do a feature like that?
I try not to let that stuff get to me. Like obviously I've taken some pretty big slams over the years. So yeah, if I like build something and I crash the first time, like it does kind of get stuck in your head. But for me, I like pushing myself and like I'm always improving. So if I
Yeah.
mess something like that up, I'll work on it mentally and decide how I can do it better, and I'll go back and like try and get it perfect, and just keep working on it until I can get it perfectly, and then just get it out of the head. And once you're done that, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I love that, man. So like focusing on what you can do to make it better rather than just focusing on like what went wrong over and over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, accidents happens; it's unavoidable, but
Yeah.
um, it starts with a lot of mental strength is like pretty key for a lot of those big moves. Like staying
Yeah, I
strong in
think
your mind and committed.
absolutely, dude. For mountain biking at any level, like without that mental strength, kind of nothing else can happen. We can have the best body position, the best braking technique in the world, but if we've got a mental block, we're going to stand there and we're not going to be able to get on our bike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm curious that line there with the log and the step down, was that the one called the Jurassic line?
Yeah, Jurassic 5.
Yeah, man, that was an awesome video. Some great trail work there and some great riding.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked how that trail turned out. My buddy Robin, who's also a filmer, started it, and the zone's just insane. Like the forest is like kind of wide open. There's like no rocks, just like really nice dirt, and there's like these massive old growth stumps that you kind of weave in between. So just way out in the bush, kind of away from everyone. So don't have to worry about bumping into people. Just kind of go out there and yeah, build you want to build and not stress about it.
Yeah, it's so cool, dude. An amazing place to ride, an amazing place to build, I'm sure. For anyone listening that wants to go and watch that video and see what Matt's talking about, they can find that via the link in your Instagram bio, right, Matt?
Yep. Yeah, I got a video with Remy doing a trail preview on that, and then I also have one with one up components that should be out here this spring. Just a little more detailed video. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome to hear. And what was it like riding with Remy? I know he's a pretty kind of precise guy. He kind of, doesn't crash too much. He's very calculated. Did you kind of learn anything from riding with him?
Yeah, Remy's a great rider. I mean, before I moved out west, I'd always watch his videos and get super stoked like everyone. His videos are unreal. So when he hit me up to do a video, it's pretty hyped for sure. He wants to ride a trail that built. So it's a great compliment for sure. Um, and yeah, just very talented, very precise, very calculated. Knows what he's doing. Um, it's actually pretty funny. In our last video, I was telling him about the speed on the drop, and he's like, "Nope, I'm gonna pedal," and he pedaled and he overshot it and he almost crashed. Like, oh, should have listened.
I think he put that up. I watched that actually. It's funny.
Yeah, it's just really hard to gauge the speed on that because you can't see the landing until you're taking off, and
Yeah.
it's kind of scary because you're quite high off the ground. But yeah, he was fine. He got back up and obviously did it perfect the next time. So
Yeah, that's fun. That's what it's all about. Hey, helping each other out and down at him.
100%.
Awesome, dude. So I kind of first came across you online, not riding big jumps, but actually riding down some really steep slabs there in Squamish. I think the first photo I seen was of you riding this line called the Fingerbiter, which is actually a rock climbing route there in Squamish, right? So I've got to ask the question: what first gave you the idea to ride down a rock climbing slab on your mountain bike?
Well, I had that idea for years before we actually executed it and did it. Like we just ride so much gnarly stuff on bikes these days. Like they're so good, and you can pretty much ride whatever you want. So I was just like riding rock slabs that are like pretty much vertical. I was like, yeah, like I can pretty much ride a rock climbing route. And I'm like, we might as well get someone climbing at the same time. And then I found this one that had already been bolted, and it was like only about 30 feet. And I'm like, I could totally ride that. Built a small transition, and yeah, the photo went viral. It was pretty nuts, like how much attention that got and how many shares, and people were
Yeah, man,
making memes out of it. And I was like, well, definitely didn't expect that, but
it's unreal. I think nothing says Squamish like a rock climber and a mountain biker both on the same vertical slab together. So cool.
yeah, it was awesome. They posted on like the front cover of the local newspaper, which was awesome.
Yeah, it's so rad. I think that's like the only small town newspaper I could actually read. Anyone that's actually got interesting content. No, I'm from country Australia, so it's all just like, cricket games and pretty dry, boring stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But Squamish newspaper is awesome. So that's great. Like setting up to ride down a rock climber's line. It's obviously something that hasn't been done on a mountain bike before. It's super steep. You had minimal transition. What were you thinking? What were you kind of saying to yourself in your head as you were doing that?
I honestly, this is gonna sound like I don't want to sound cocky, but I was like, it honestly wasn't that bad. Like I was a little scared the first time, and I was like, oh, this is steep, but I think it should go. And once I dropped and hit that compression, I was like, that was actually quite easy.
Awesome. No, not
So
cocky at all. I think it really speaks to kind of those years of training or those years of riding that you've put in beforehand, so that you can almost be like, hey, this is just like the other almost vertical rock slabs I ride in the same area.
yeah, exactly. I remember when I was riding a lot of skate parks, I dropped into a few like vert ramps with a couple of feet of vert. So it's a very similar feeling. You're kind of like just kind of nosing over and then kind of like unweighting and like catching the transition. So riding the steep slabs is actually very similar to dropping into a vert ramp.
Huh, that's a cool experience to draw on that I hadn't thought of myself. For those that haven't seen the photo or the video, you should definitely check it out. But yeah, Matt's full like almost jumping into these slabs, aren't you? Like your back wheels off the ground as you make that transition.
You have to nose in because it's kind of like an edge. And if you don't, then your chain guide will catch and toss you over. So you have to like lift up the back wheel and like nose in almost vertical.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing to watch. I'm sure it feels awesome to nail it and ride it as well.
Oh yeah.
That's right. So on the note of like the mental state and setting up, do you have any key principles for operating in a optimal state of mind for mountain biking, whether you're riding slabs or riding jumps or whatever else?
Yeah, like usually when I'm gonna do anything that's like a little more gnarly, like a big jump, big drop, or a slab, um, you definitely want to be like mentally calm. If you're like you're upset or you're not feeling it, like you gotta know when to walk away. Like I've always said, a sign of a good rider is knowing when to call it and like not push. If you're not feeling it, like don't push yourself. Like that's when accidents happen. So um, yeah, mentally strong, like prepare yourself. I usually take like a lot of deep breaths and like very calm. Actually got into yoga a couple years ago, and just like the breathing, just like long
Yeah.
breaths and just keeping the heart rate down, staying focused. Um, that's the key. Like as soon as you start getting excited and antsy, like you're gonna take a pass on some gnarly stuff on that one.
Yeah, right on, dude. There's so much, chunks of wisdom right there in those couple of sentences. And I couldn't agree more. The breathing and the yoga, something that's really helped me myself. I know kind of years ago, there was a lot of stigma around kind of, mindfulness and, talking about your feelings and stuff like that. But I found for me, just, starting to stretch and then getting into yoga was a really good kind of pathway to become, more calm, more relaxed, and then kind of carry that state out onto the bike, which is just amazing, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's great mentally and it's great physically as well. Like you do a lot of mountain biking, you're super hunched over all the time. Your shoulders are very tense, so it's nice just to
Yeah, the
relax.
hips and hamstrings don't like mountain biking much today.
No.
No. So I'm curious, do you set yourself goals when you're riding?
um, I wouldn't say goals. Like I definitely like to push myself, and um, yeah, I don't really set myself goals. Like I don't want to be like I want to ride this feature, this feature, this feature. I've always just kind of winged it, to be honest. If I'm feeling something, I'll go out and build it, or
Yeah,
if I see something cool and I want to ride, I'll hit somebody up and say, hey, like let's ride this feature. But no, there's no goals. I'm
yeah,
sure if I look back 10 years ago and talk to myself and I was like, hey, like I'm a sponsored biker for riding big slabs, I'd be like, what? Like that
yeah.
makes it's crazy. So yeah, just do what you like to do and see where it takes you. And that's what I've
That's
done.
awesome,
It's
man. Yeah, it's
worked out
pretty cool
pretty
to
well.
hear. So instead of kind of focusing on the end outcome, you're just, really enjoying your passion, really diving into it. And then that's kind of, paid off in the long term.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can kind of pigeon yourself into like if you want to like get really into racing and train for racing and push yourself that way. But again, that's also pretty easy to get burnt out. So if you like racing, like that's great. But for me, like I had some pressure to do some racing. I'm like, this is fun, but I don't like really enjoy it that much. Like I'd rather go out and build something and like ride what I want to ride and not just what other people want to ride.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. You can, listen to yourself and kind of, be strong enough to stand up and just be like, no, I'm going to do what's fun for me. I'm going to do what works for me. And, just because I'm a fast rider doesn't mean I have to race as well.
100%, man. And we're actually seeing that change in the industry. Like past couple years, Freeride's gotten so much bigger, and there's guys like Remy and Johan now that are just doing Freeride and videos and for being professional instead of racing. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's
we'll see
really
that
cool.
shift more and more.
Absolutely. It's really cool that kind of sponsors have come on board with that as well. And you're still able to be, a professional mountain biker without having to go and race all around the world every year.
I think the pandemic was huge for that too, because all the races got canceled, and all these brands are like, well, like how are we going to promote ourselves and all this stuff? And
Mm,
they're like, wait, content creation. And then
yeah,
everyone their cousin got a YouTube channel, and they're all out
absolutely,
making
man.
content. But yeah, I don't think that's going anywhere.
Nope, not at all. So I'm curious, when you're out there kind of checking out features and deciding, hey, I might like to hit that, or hey, I might like to build this thing. Like, how do you go about, picking something that's achievable, yet still challenging at the same time?
Yeah, like I'm always on the lookout for new features and new builds. So like I'll usually get like an idea in my mind, like, oh, I want to build a drop, or I want to build like a gnarly slab, and I'll try and find like a feature and I can make it work. And a lot of the time it's always more challenging to build than you think it's going to be. So it's like, oh,
Yeah,
I
I
can
bet.
chop it in, and it's like, oh, now I'm building a 30-foot ladder bridge, run out, or oh, there's like a massive boulder here I have to move. So um, yeah, just always kind of like get an idea, plan it out, scope it out, find the zone, and then make it work.
Does it ever get out of hand and the features are just like too big?
I usually hit everything I've built. I haven't walked away from something yet. Um, there's one slab I started a couple years ago. I was like literally straight down. I was like, you know what, like maybe not this one, and pulled the plug. But
Yeah.
yeah, usually I'm gonna like spend the time building something. I'm gonna make it work and gonna make it sick.
Yeah, dude, that's a pretty impressive track record there. After watching a lot of your videos, I'm like, wow, you've actually wrote all that stuff. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm curious, what's one thing you've learned lately on the bike, and how did you approach learning this new skill or, writing this new feature?
thing with mountain biking is you're always learning, um, like always trying to improve, always trying to do better. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's anything new that I've learned. More just like honing in on my skills, and like I'm always trying to practice something. Like I've never been that good at like hitting turns. So I'm always trying to work on hitting turns. Or I'll see guys like if I ride with someone that like do really sick. I was down in Bellingham, and this guy called Miles was doing really sick manuals on the trails, and I was like, oh man, like I got to work on manuals so I can do that too. So really just kind of draw inspiration from others, and if they're doing something that looks sick to me, like I'll try and work on that and try and make myself better at that.
Yeah, it's so rad to hear because I know, sometimes, I'll be watching YouTube videos and like of people like yourself, and you're like, man, these people are just miles above me. They're just so good. And it seems like you've got everything dialed. So it's really cool to talk to someone like you and you're being like, no, like I'm still working on my cornering, I'm still working on my manuals.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
still just
You
like,
only see the good videos, but there's lots of failed attempts and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I
man,
suck at
just
manuals as well. I'm so bad at them. So
yeah, but you're working on getting better. That's the main thing, eh?
I'm trying.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had any big challenges on the bike?
I'd say my biggest challenge on the bike was at a pretty gnarly crash. That was like 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. Just like bad concussion, and actually knocked myself unconscious, and almost choked on my tongue, and yeah, almost suffocated. My buddy had to pull my tongue out of my mouth. And,
Oh man.
it was quite gnarly. So coming back from that mentally was like challenging. Obviously, you got that kind of fear in the back of your head on like what if I do that again. But like working past that, it takes a long time and like a lot of yeah, I don't know, a lot of courage, I guess. But getting past
Yeah.
that, it's a good feeling, and I feel like 100% again. And obviously, concussions are tough to work past too. Like I don't know if any probably some of the listeners have had some bad concussions, but the effects like last a long time. Like I was feeling like a different person for like 6 months. Like brain was mushy and just like yeah, emotions were different. But
Yeah, dude, I'm sorry to hear that. I've had a few mates experience a similar thing with concussion. They say just the symptoms, last so much longer than they expect. And it's just, so frustrating and so annoying. So yeah, dude, I'm stoked for you to hear that you're through that, you've done the work and you're back, feeling 100% again.
yeah, just trying to stay healthy and avoid all that again.
Yeah. So you mentioned some work you do off the bike before, doing some yoga, doing some breath work off the bike. I'm curious if you have, anything else or any other parts of your routine, before or after you get on the bike.
Obviously, I just try to stay in shape as much as possible. Just like a lot of body weight exercise, a lot of push-ups. I do like 30 push-ups every morning. Just keep that upper body strength and key. And then in the winter, I'll hit the gym when riding's not so good. So a lot of like squats, deadlifts, just kind of basic exercise, keeping the strength up. And a lot of like bike specific stuff too, shoulders, rows. It's all good stuff for on the bike. So it helps if you do go down, like being in shape and flexible and strong. It's a like lower chance of getting hurt. So yeah, just try and keep the body as happy as possible. And I got a massage gun, which is really nice. If you don't have one, you should get one. It's just great for
Yeah,
after riding, just blasting the legs and loosen up all the tight muscles.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of stuff like the foam roller myself. Getting on that before and after every ride. It's so cool to hear that you're working on, not just your riding, not just your fitness, like a lot of people do, but like all the factors that affect your performance on the bike.
Yeah, it's like it's all connected. Like your nutrition, your stretching, your strength training, your riding. It's like everything's tied into one. So you can be really good at one thing, but if you're weak in another area, it's gonna affect each other.
Yeah, exactly right. I often kind of refer to it to people as like a skill wheel. And it's like if we have, three parts of the four, we're going to have this buckled wheel. It's going to kind of spin for so long, but eventually it's going to explode on us, just like a mountain bike wheel that's maybe missing a couple of spokes.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious. Have you ever had any mentors yourself, kind of teaching you about mountain biking or about trail building? And if you have, what's the best bit of advice you've been given by a mentor?
Um, I'm always getting inspired by a lot of people. Like growing up, I was looking up to dudes like Brett Reeder and Matt McDuff, who were kind of from a similar area as me. And obviously, Brett and Matt are some of the best riders in the world now and world famous. So definitely inspiring looking up to those dudes. They were always encouraging to go out and mountain bike. So And then these days, like we're lucky in Squamish because we have so many talented trail builders around. So I draw a lot of inspiration from guys around here digging trails, like Rob from Gravity Logic. I worked for him for a bit, and definitely inspiring to see what those guys have done. Like both a lot of trails in Whistler and Squamish, and travel the world and build trails now, and got it super dialed. And, guys like Dave Reed running the Sorka Trail crew, and he's built half the slab trails in Squamish. So definitely inspiring. I wouldn't say they've really given me like any like word for word advice, but just seeing what they've done and how they've done it, that's inspired me to go out and build trail. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So cool to hear that you've had, people like that around you kind of all the way through your riding career, from over in Ontario, and then moving here to Squamish as well. It's right. It's definitely always great to have people to look up to and kind of see what's possible, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I know for me, coming here to Canada, it was huge. I was like all of a sudden planted in this paradise, and there's just so many good riders, so many good trails, just like endless sources of inspiration. And yeah,
that's a lot to take in.
yeah, absolutely. So this is another kind of big open-ended question. Take it in any direction you like, but I want to ask you, what keeps you passionate and motivated?
I'd say keeping me motivated is kind of pushing myself. It's pretty easy to fall into like a routine, like ride the same trail. So I always kind of try and push myself and do something a little bit better. And passionate, just I just love what I do. So like the second I'm not loving it, then I'll try and do something different.
Yeah.
For example, like when I was racing, I was enjoying racing, and it was nice like traveling around and riding different stuff and pushing myself that way. But I never really like it came to race day, and I'm like never really that stoked on actually doing it. So like I moved away from that, and pretty stoked on where I'm at now. And it's cool getting feedback from people too, like when I'm building stuff and people are stoked on what I'm building. That's definitely inspiring for me and makes me want to keep going.
Absolutely, dude. That's awesome. So talking about kind of pushing yourself there and always finding, different ways to get better in terms of finding motivation from that. Do you ever kind of face barriers when you're kind of pushing yourself where the risk level keeps going up and up and up? And if so, like, how do you find, ways to progress and ways to get better without kind of pushing that risk level like up through the roof?
I think the answer to that is a lot of practice. When I remember my first slab ride at Squamish, we rode room with a view, which is kind of an older trail, and went to the slab. I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad. Let off the brakes, and I'm like, wait, I need to slow down. And like, grabbed a bunch of back brake and just skidded off in the bush and ripped open my hands. So, but now I can ride that.
That's a classic. Hey, it's funny.
Yeah.
I had almost like exactly the same experience the first time I came to Squamish.
Yeah.
On In-N-Out Burger, but right next to that, it's like all back brake, and then I ended up on the side on that slab. And for those that don't know, for those that haven't been to Squamish, that slab is kind of like a cheese grater, isn't it?
Yeah, the granite here is super grippy, but that slab takes a ton of people because they see it in videos and photos. They're like, oh, I got to ride that. They get close to the bottom. They're like, oh, I'm going too fast, and there's a tree. So I even had a buddy this summer that came and did that, and he KO'd himself and like broke his tooth. And search and rescue's got a lot of calls from that slab. So
I'm sure. Yeah, it's definitely worth kind of getting your position and balance and your braking down pack before hitting any of those slabs there.
Yeah, definitely working your way up is key.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you've learned a lot of stuff on the bike, but what has riding taught you?
It's taught me a lot. Like it's taught me to be humble. It's taught me to follow your dreams. It's taught me to surround yourself with like-minded people. It's pretty much riding is what you make it. Like, there's so many talented people around here and so many cool people to hang out with and so many people that build trail. So, it's riding is almost like a lifestyle, and it's that's what's great about the West Coast. It's so easy to surround yourself with like-minded people, and it's got to be one of the only spots in the world you can just like hit up 10 people and be like, hey, we're gonna go throw dirt in the forest and hang out, and they're actually stoked on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing I love around here. Everyone's always down to do something. It's no like, oh, it's a little bit wet, or I'm not quite sure if I have energy. Like, there's always someone to ride with. There's always someone to dig with, right? Another question I've kind of got here for you that I like to ask people is, when you're riding, do you have a motto or anything you repeat to yourself in your head to keep you nice and grounded whilst riding?
Um, yeah, not really. I just try and stay focused and just push myself. And I find when you're kind of clear headed and calm, like that's kind of when you get the best rides and best results. You just kind of focus in on the trail, and everything else kind of turns into a blur, and then you're just focused on like just pinning the trail and hitting the jump, and yeah, you just kind of block everything else out. So
Mm.
I'd say the motto, just like try as hard as you can to get into that flow state and focus on having fun on the bike.
Yeah, absolutely. That state's kind of magic, isn't it? There's almost like nothing being said in your internal dialogue, nothing being heard. You're just laser focused on the trail and on the riding.
That's what's fun about riding the gnarly stuff. It's like you got to focus, and it's like it's the only thing you can think of. You're like, this is gonna kill me if I mess up. So you're super focused on like staying in one piece.
It's interesting, isn't it? I know myself and a lot of other riders I've worked with, like we often say, we crash on the easy stuff. And I think it's almost because of what you're saying there. When we're on super gnarly stuff or stuff that's really hard for us, we're laser focused because we're like, I cannot fuck up. I cannot fall off. Whereas maybe we're cruising down an easy flow trail and we're just, our mind's on other things. And before we know it, we're kind of over the bars or something like that, right?
100%. Like the worst crashes I've had have been on stuff I'm not suspecting on easy trails. You're just playing around,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, boom, on the ground.
Man, I've been riding Seymour flat out, and then recently went home to visit family in Australia. Where I'm from, it's kind of flat, gravelly cross country trails. Anyway, I was on a climb trail. It was a green climb trail, and I ended up, just wash it out and almost giving myself a concussion. So it's
Oh
like,
no.
coming from riding, down Mount Seymour flat out here and then crashing on a green climb trail in Australia, I was like, wow, that hits home.
It's always the way it goes.
Yeah, it is exactly. So from your perspective as a mountain biker, I won't call you a free rider, but as a mountain biker who likes jumps and steep slabs, um, what is usually the biggest obstacle that you see other people face in achieving their goals on the bike?
Um, it's honestly, you got to go back to like fundamental skills. Like I'll see a lot of people try and do like big jumps or big drops, and they haven't really like practiced on like the basic stuff yet. So I've always said if you want to be good at jumps, go ride a pump track, because it's a very similar motion. The pumping and pushing on a pump track is very similar to pumping and pushing on a transition and taking off in a jump. So you'll see a lot of guys just huck it and go for it on big stuff, but they don't have like the base skills to back it up. So if you want to get better, like just work on the basics. And like once you have that dialed, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. What are some of the basics that are most important in your opinion?
So yeah, it depends what you're riding, but jumps, drops, corners, body position, and braking.
Yeah.
Brake control is key. Like I've kind of got a bit of a reputation for having good brake control. And it's funny because I used to ride brakeless back in the day on my dirt jumper, so I don't know how that's happened, but yeah.
What are these things?
Well, you can actually stop without jamming your foot in the wheel. Sweet.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that though, isn't it? Because often if we're really good at braking, we can go faster in between braking, right? Whereas if we're bad at braking, we're not going to be confident carrying as much speed.
Exactly. Like, and knowing when to brake as well, like before the turn, not braking in the turn, and like setting yourself up instead of like, yeah.
Yeah. And are you braking at all when you're going down a super steep rock slide?
It's all front brake. That's the key.
Oh, front brake. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You see a lot of people, they get their weight pushed back, their back wheel, it's locked up, you're just skidding. But see me, it's like you put a lot more pressure on the front wheel, and it's almost like 90% front brake, and you can almost lift the back wheel off the ground and still have the same effect. So body position and braking is like very correlated.
Super interesting, isn't it? Because they're like the base of base foundation skills that we teach someone on their first day on a mountain bike, but they're still the same skills you're working on when you're riding like vertical rock slabs.
100%.
Yeah.
It's sweet in this area because we've got so many good coaches, and people can go out with trainers and just practice working on that stuff and getting it dialed.
Absolutely. Do you kind of work with any coaches yourself, or are you just hanging out with mates, learning from them?
Bunch of my friends are coaches around here, and a lot of the trail brothers are also coaches. So
Yeah, lucky guy.
I've never gone out with one, not for like a course, but yeah, definitely ridden with a ton.
Yeah, super cool, man. I've got a couple of questions here that people have asked on Instagram. One of them is your buddy David Reed that you mentioned before. He's got a bit of a curveball here that I want to mention. He's asked, if you were a donut, what type would you be and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Probably be an apple fritter.
An
Um,
apple fritter, hey?
I
Why
don't
is
know
that?
why, but I just love apple fritters, so maybe I'd be one. I eat enough, so maybe I'll be one.
Nice one, man. That's a good answer. Another question I've got here, it's from someone called Luck Percent or LP.
Luke.
I'm not sure if you know them.
Yep.
Yeah, they've asked, how do you prepare mentally for your first hit on a big feature? And how does he fit into his pants with such huge balls? I had to throw that one in there because he
Oh
wasn't the
boy,
only one that mentioned you having big balls.
that's a nice addition. They're just normal size for the record.
There's no
Yeah,
Johan Borelli like the nut going on there or anything like
no third nuts, just the two normal ones for me. But
that. So
uh,
let's focus on the first half of that question. Yeah, how do you prepare mentally for your first hit on a big boy feature?
yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's like a lot of breaths. So I'll stay at the top and like just take big long breaths and like calm myself down, stay focused, get my heart rate down. I'll do like a bunch of roll-ins. Um, usually like, I don't know, usually like two or three, and then if I feel comfortable with that amount, then I'll give the feature an attempt. Um, sometimes I'll roll in the feature and be like, you know what, like this isn't gonna work, and I'll have to go back and change something and then come back. So just
Mm,
make sure you're feeling it. Like if you're not feeling confident, then don't do it. Stay calm and feel confident, and then commit after you're all dialed in.
yeah, it's some really sound advice. And as you're kind of rolling in or as you're visualizing that line at the start, like what are some things you're looking for? Or what are some things you're thinking as you're going through that process?
It depends on the kind of feature. Like for a drop, I'll be like, okay, I was going that quick, and the gap's this big, it's this far down, and you kind of base it off like past experiences as well. So if you hit a bunch of drops, like you're usually pretty dialed in at getting the speed. So you're looking at that. You're looking like what's the route going to be like. You're looking if there's any wind and stuff like that. For the bigger jumps, you don't want to get blown around. And like obviously, I like going over my bike too, giving the brakes a pump, make sure the brakes are working good, get the tires
Yeah,
a squeeze, make sure they're at the proper psi. So
absolutely. Yeah, some great checks you're going through there to kind of have all the confidence you could possibly get. I know a lot of people get stuck kind of standing at the top of a feature, maybe looking at all the things that could go wrong or all the things that could potentially, snag their tire or, get them offline, stuff like that. How do you manage, you know, that kind of situation?
well, I think it's important to know the worst case scenario. Like if you do get bumped offline or something like that, and like how to react to it's huge. Like if you're in the air, you're like, oh, I'm gonna be short. Like knowing if you should throw your bike or stay on it, it's pretty
Mm,
important. So it's good to go over in your head first on what could happen in those, and just kind of get a bit of a plan. Obviously, you want to visualize yourself doing it, but
mm.
having those plans is key in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, so it sounds like you do kind of think about the consequences or think about the worst case scenario, but you're not really dwelling on that. You're more so focused on, what can go right. Is that?
Yeah, 100%. And then yeah, it also kind of depends, like affects how you hit it. So like if you're like, oh, that route could get me, or I could hit that tree, then you want to like change your line slightly. So obviously you avoid those things, but yeah, just visualize yourself doing it and visualize doing it the correct way, and then
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about the other stuff so much.
Yeah, I know that's great advice. I know another guy, Anthony Busetta, a French rider that I interviewed on this podcast a couple of months ago. He was kind of saying he visualizes stuff so that when he's actually rides it, he's not feeling like he's riding it for the first time because he's already seen himself doing it in his mind.
Yeah, that's great advice. He's a shredder. He's been up here. He's hit a bunch of my trails, so I've seen him
Absolutely
send it,
good.
and
And
I know he's a great rider. So
he's been doing it
um,
on a bull tire for about the last 3 months too. So
yeah,
crazy.
he's loose. That triple ride he did was insane.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm yeah, kind of excited to see what he comes up with next, because I don't think he's going to stop at that.
Something crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Getting back to kind of that visualization process and the run-ins you do at the top of a feature, do you ever kind of limit yourself to, how long you'll stand and look at a feature for?
No, I got
Nope.
no shame in taking as many roll-ins as I need, or walking away from something.
Yeah, no, definitely no shame. I'm just curious. Like, I know for myself, if I look at something for too long, sometimes I'll end up, finding something that could go wrong. Whereas if I just kind of have a quick look, I picture myself doing it, have a quick assessment, I'm like either yes or no. I'm curious if that's similar for you or if it's different.
Um, it's similar, but like I've spent a lot of time looking at stuff and then still done it.
Yeah.
And that's like knowing I can do it, but and also feeling it too. Like I've also had situations where I'm out filming and I found my buddy Robin like string lines across the river. Like when the creek gap was in Squamish, we'd like set up this crazy. He strung himself in between two trees over top of the river. He spent hours setting it up, and I got down there. I'm like, you know what, dude? Like I'm not feeling this today. I don't want to hit it. Like it's and like yeah, just had to walk away from that one. But
Well, that's huge. People think of mental toughness as, hitting the gap and, hitting everything. But I think it almost takes more mental strength to walk away from something, especially in that situation where someone else has kind of put a lot of time and a lot of effort into getting out there for the shoot.
yeah, like knowing when to say no is huge.
Hmm. I think that's what keeps you mountain biking, and that's how you get good in the end. If you do say no to things that are potentially going to break you.
Yeah, 100%. That's how you stay in one piece and spend more time on the bike.
Yeah, absolutely did. So you're obviously wearing the Ride NF shirt there, but I've got a question here. I'm curious, is there any other partners or sponsors that you'd like to mention that help you make all this wild stuff happen?
Yeah, I'd love to. NF was my first sponsor there. I hit up Travis on Instagram actually when he's first starting. He had these crazy designs he was putting out, and it's like, dude, this is actually pretty sick. And like,
Yeah.
you looking for any people to ride for? And obviously, he got a ton of requests already. And he's like, yeah, I'm coming to ride in Squamish for my birthday. I was like, oh, I'll come join you. So I joined him, and then yeah, became friends and been riding for him ever since. And I find like kind of once you get one kind of get one brand on your side, it's a lot easier to get other brands. So um, like I did like a video in the NF kit, and then after that, like I got to deal with One Up, and they started giving me stuff. Um, and then the industry is so small. Like One Up's got a ton of connections, and they post you on their story, and other brands see it. So it's knowing how to market yourself as well. Um, so I've kind of like marketed myself as like a trail builder and rider, and a lot of the brands that I ride for, like Transition, Weir One, they're really good at supporting trail builders, and um, they know how important it is to the sport. So Transition was built on trail building, so very stoked to be affiliated with them, and they're stoked on me, which is unreal. And yeah, like this year my bike's super dialed. Like I got tire sponsors, Delium Tires, which is a new company, and really stoked on them. Got Tansar inserts. Inserts are a lifesaver. Got Web Components. I got EXT suspension, Alba distribution, Ride Concepts, and it was crazy. Like last summer, I was getting like a bazillion requests on Instagram just from random brands or call like, "You're a partner for this. You're a partner for this." And I'm like, I had to just say no to people. I'm like, honestly, like I don't want to like start promoting products that I don't use and I don't like. Like, um, I try not to like, I don't want to be like a sellout for brands. I want to just like keep doing what I do. And if your product like fits into that, like I love it. So,
Yeah, dude. That's a really
very
good way of
lucky
looking
that
at it.
way. And yeah, everyone that's supported me has been awesome. So very stoked on it.
That's rad, man. It's so cool to hear how you kind of, you went out and got that first sponsor and then got the momentum rolling. And now you're at a point where you're kind of saying no to brands that you maybe don't want to ride for. That's awesome. So that bike sounds like a bit of a dream setup. What model transition are you on?
Well, I've got four of them right now, which is hard to believe.
Which one's your favorite?
My main bike's the Patrol. So they redid the
Nice.
frame for this year. Or last year. It's the mullet setup 160, and the Patrol is such a sick bike. It's great for pretty much everything. You can climb it up whatever you want, and then it's super playful on the way down. You can ride in the bike park. You can like do just trail rides on it. The geometry is so good too. Like you can pedal it. The suspension doesn't even move when you're pedaling, which is awesome. And just the geometry, like Transition's a super fun brand. They all shred over there, so they know how to make playful bikes. And yeah, love the Patrol. And I just got their new e-bike as well. And e-bikes, a lot of people are unsure of, but after you spend some time on it, like it's absolutely insane how fast those things go on the way down. It's like I'm pretty sure I can ride that faster than my Patrol on some of the descents around here.
I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people don't like e-bikes, but it's only until they ride one.
Yeah, and then they realize, like, wait a second, this is actually sick. I'm laughing on the way
I
out.
was the same as you. I was like, I'd need one of these as soon as I rode one. Still would replace my regular bike for it, but it would be great to have another one in the garage as well.
100%.
Yeah. No, that's right. So you're mainly riding your Patrol, your enduro bike for like all of these Freeride lines, all of these slabs, all of this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. It's just super versatile. Like you can ride anything on it. Slabs, jumps, drops, trail, enduro racing, bike park, whatever. It's like new bikes are just insane.
It's so cool, isn't it? Before we used to need like a downhill bike and we needed a cross-country bike to go pedaling and all these different bikes. Whereas now you can almost just buy one bike and do it all.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people are getting into the sport, just because, the new bikes are so good, so versatile. So you get one bike, they can go do everything, and it's blowing up.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. You've obviously been involved in a whole bunch of cool filming projects, a whole bunch of cool, trails that you've built yourself. Do you have a favorite that you wanted to kind of, talk about a little bit while we're chatting here?
Favorite video or favorite trail, or both?
Maybe both, but like favorite project you've been involved with, maybe one that's on YouTube that people can go and watch.
I've got a couple of favorite projects. I'd say my first favorite project was I hit up this guy called Robin from Wildland Media. This is 7 years ago. It was my first year in Squamish. He was like putting out videos on Pink Bike. I was like, hey dude, like these are sick. Like, let's make a video.
Nice.
And yeah, he just like came out to Squamish. We made a sick video. We went to the Sunshine Coast, went to Pemby. We like traveled around a bunch, hit the train gap. It's before it got too mainstream. And just made a video and people were stoked on it. Got a ton of views. It's called 1 Year in the Sea to Sky. And that was kind of like my first like legit video project I'd done. So that's probably my favorite one I've done. I've also done another project with Robin called Big Wild, presented by One Up Components. It was just kind of like a short film on trail building and riding. So I talk a lot about trail building and then write a lot of the features I built in the video. So you can check that one out too. He's a really good filmer, very talented, and he gets the most crazy angles. Like he'll scramble 30 feet up a tree or set up this cable cam. So always stoked to shoot with him. And again, we have got so many talented photographers and videographers around here. Like my friend Jordan's taking some super nice photos of me. My buddy PL is a great filmer. And yeah, we're just very lucky to have guys like that around and showcase their riding.
That's rad, man. I know, Big Wild is one that I've watched myself. It's an awesome video. People should definitely check out. I'm curious if you can share, have you got any cool projects that you're working on at the moment or anything that's kind of in the pipeline coming out soon?
Me and Robin did that short one on J5 last fall. So that should be coming out. Nothing too crazy, just some like super nice shots of the trail I built. And I've got some plans this year. I know me and Steve Vanderhook were talking about maybe doing a video in Kamloops. So that'd be sweet if we make that happen. And it's gonna keep building trail and hopefully just keep shooting clips. And yeah, I've got another. I kind of want to do a longer video on that rock climber, mountain biker thing. Maybe some bigger lines. So
you've got a few more slabs in mind, or what?
Yeah, some more rock climbing routes I want to ride down. So just thinking about maybe doing a little documentary on that.
Yeah, when you're kind of cleaning the moss off these lines, is it you that abseils down?
Yeah, so again, Robin actually, he gave me this old climbing harness he had, and nice. You get this attachment called a greedry, which is like it kind of releases the ropes. You can tie it off the top and self-release and lock yourself in place and then blast the moss and rappel down. So I never really rock climbed before.
That's something I was going to ask you.
I've always joked that I only rock climb when I'm building mountain bike lines.
That's so awesome. So I also wanted to bring up, you've got a bit of an unusual sponsor for a mountain biker. Is it DeWalt that sponsors you with all the power tools?
Oh yeah, DeWalt Canada. So yeah, I hit them up a couple years ago. I was like, hey, like this e-saw looks pretty sweet. I'd love to use it for trail building. And I got in touch with like the his name's Chris. He's like the marketing guy for DeWalt, Black and Decker, Craftsman, CA, and he's actually like he's super far up in the company. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah, they're just like stoked on what I'm doing for trail building, and this tag them on Instagram, and they've been super hyped on it, very supportive, and tools have been great. So yeah, I love the tools. The eSaw is a game changer. I
Oh
love that
man, I
thing.
bet. Yeah.
It's nice and quiet. Like don't have to use giant earplugs or nothing like that, and you never have to worry about gas or like starting it up and throwing your shoulder out. You just pull the trigger and go, and it's like a trail building weapon. I love it.
Yeah. No, man, that's great. It's cool to hear the story behind that because I'd often see that on your Instagram that you're sponsored by DeWalt. And I'm like, oh, that's so random. How did that come about?
Yeah, you're like, why is this guy taking DeWalt?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you see you hanging there, like, abseiling down a rock climbing line. You're using the tools all the time.
Yeah.
But
Definitely,
I just
definitely helps, man,
think
because those tools, yeah, they're like, if you don't work construction, like the tools are quite expensive to get into. So you're buying
yeah.
bikes, you're buying trail building equipment. So it all adds up. And the fact they're supportive of trail building has been awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool that all these different sponsors come together and make these projects happen or help make them happen anyway.
100%.
So where can people listening find you and follow your adventures online?
I'd say mostly just Instagram. Honestly, social media is kind of tough for me. Like I'm so busy doing real life stuff, trail building and riding, and then you got to like also promote yourself on social media. So I say I probably spend the most time on Instagram. Again, I don't overly love Instagram. Somehow I've convinced a lot of people to follow me, but yeah,
No,
it's kind
fair
of
enough, man. It is hard to find that balance, isn't it, between just like having fun and riding and then like, stopping all the time to get photos and stuff like this.
yeah,
I find that a little bit myself too.
it's a bit of a necessary evil. Like you kind of have to do it these days. But
yeah, a bit of a
yeah,
love-hate relationship maybe.
I'd rather just kind of go out and build trail. And what I like is like it's fun. We can bring a photographer out there with you and like get shots at the same time. And then you don't have to worry so much about like creating content and building trail. And like you're
Yeah, for
GoPro on
sure.
yourself building trail all the time. So
Yeah. What is your Instagram handle there for people listening?
it's Matt Bolts, MATT_BOLTZ.
Yeah, fantastic, dude. I'll link that in the show notes as well. This has been a pretty wide-ranging conversation of being kind of bouncing around all over the place with questions. But if you were to kind of put it into one sentence, what's the biggest takeaway you hope listeners learn from this conversation we've had together tonight?
I just hope other people get inspired to like realize they can ride their bike the way they want to, and hopefully some people are inspired to go out and build trail and build some cool features because that's what it's all about for me. Like when I see people out building trails and after like hopefully they see what I build and get inspired and just go out and build the same thing. And that's kind of what keeps mountain biking going is people always pushing each other. And yeah, so just hopefully I can get people stoked on bikes and stoked on digging.
For sure, man. I'm certainly super inspired kind of having this conversation and watching your videos. So I'm sure others will be as well. I'm going to be respectful of your time here, but before we kind of jump off the call, is there anything else you wanted to mention or anything else you wanted to chat about?
Nope, that was it. Just if anyone's listening to this and they've never traveled before, get in touch with your local cycling association. They do a lot of trail days, like Sork up here in Squamish does a great job doing trail days. And sorry, my dog's going nuts here, scratching the door. So
No, don't worry, dude. If you need to get up and let her out.
No, it's okay. He's just getting anxious. He wants to
Yeah,
go outside and see my roommate. But yeah, get in touch with those clubs and yeah, go volunteer your time and help out and get back to the trails because they don't maintain themselves.
Yeah, for sure. That's some really good advice. Everyone should definitely grab a membership to their local trail association. No better time to do it than the start of the season, like right now.
Yeah, start of the season. And they also have like great events like Sork up here's the fivers. You know, you can do a ride with sometimes they get the local pros to sponsor them. You do a ride with them, and then you go to the after party, have a beer, have your dinner, and hang out with like-minded individuals and just chat about bikes. So yeah,
man, they're the best parties in town.
100%.
That's for sure. I know you led one of the rides last season, right?
Yeah, I was stoked on that. One of hit me up. They're like, "Hey, you want to lead a ride?" I was like, "Is anybody going to come on my ride?" But yeah, a bunch of people came out, and it was a good time. Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not super personable kind of like hanging out by myself, so it was a bit awkward for me. But yeah, chatting with people and getting them stoked on bikes was fun.
Yeah, right on, man. That's awesome. Good on you for doing that. Kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and yeah, becoming more of an extrovert.
Yeah, trying anyways.
Yeah. No, that's rad. Well, yeah, I'm gonna let you go here. Let you get out and walk your dog. But thanks so much for coming on the show. I've certainly had a great time chatting to you, and I'm sure listeners will get a lot out of this conversation. So thank you, man. It's been rad.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Appreciate you having me on.
Right on, dude. See you on the trails.
Yeah, take care.